Our guest today is the Alderman of the Second Ward. He is a first-generation American whose father came through Ellis Island, moved to Pullman, and got a job at the Pullman Train Car Company. He was born and raised on Chicago's South Side in the Pullman and Roseland district. He earned his undergraduate degree in political science and served as student body president at the University of Illinois. He earned his law degree from Northern Illinois University in 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the City Club of Chicago, Alderman Bob Fioretti. Robert? Have some fun up here.
Thank you. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to thank Jay and Ed and the Board of Governors for the club for inviting me back here and providing this forum for what we'll spend a little time and a little opportunity to pierce through the soundbite and spend a little time on the issues that are important to all of us here in this city. A lot has changed since the last time that I stood at this podium, and today I would like to report on the accomplishments made, a perspective that has deepened, and an address the challenges and opportunities that I see before us in this great city. This year we commemorate the 100th anniversary of Daniel Burnham's 1909 Plan of Chicago, a plan that provides principles that continue to guide the way we think of planning and development today. To honor this centennial, a memorial is being built in Chicago, and it was my pleasure to work with the American Institute of Architects Chicago to locate the Burnham Memorial on the site of the museum campus in front of the Field Museum. As children and their families visit the museum campus, the Burnham Memorial will serve not only to explain this important piece of history, but will inspire future generations in the art and science of urban planning. I believe we are all familiar with Burnham's quote, "Make no little plans." Well, as I stood here a year ago today, a big plan, a once-in-a-lifetime development opportunity loomed before us through the Olympic bid process, Chicago 2016, the many corporate sponsors, and thousands of volunteers came together with a spirit of unity, purpose, and optimism over a common cause. I believe it is incumbent upon us as city leaders to harness the energy and focus that the bid provided and put it to good use for the betterment of our city and our collective future, to redouble our efforts to come up with creative solutions to the challenges that we are facing today. And today, I would like to address how in the Second Ward we are working on better communities and opportunities for our citizens by focusing on 5 key issues: employment, development, infrastructure, education, and finally by addressing the city budget. Turning to the issue of employment. As we all know, we are in the midst of one of the most difficult times and crises since the Great Depression. September unemployment rate in this city was at 11.3%, 1.5% higher than the national average. And these numbers underestimate the true number by not counting the underemployed or people who have stopped looking. And there is debate here on when we will turn the corner for more robust times. That is why, in addition to the city services that you would expect from an alderman, job retention and job growth have been one of my top priorities. Before becoming an alderman, I was an attorney in private practice with my own firm. I know what it means to be a small business owner in this city, to provide a quality service to your clients or customers, and also having to know something about maintaining an office, making payroll, providing benefits for employees. And we all know it's not easy. But running a business gave me an understanding, and it still does, on how to create a more favorable business climate in Chicago and to grow more job opportunities. Let me be clear on the next point with regards to job creation. And this is regarding the use of TIF resources for job growth. There are several points with respect to the use of TIF funds. Many of the most salient points don't seem to make it on the local news. Can there be more transparency with respect to TIF reporting? Clearly, the answer is yes. and I am supporting these efforts. But as I know, and I stand here today, those TIF dollars, property tax dollars generated by an area, which should be reinvested back into, leverage or attract significant private capital dollars that are necessary to create job growth and grow the tax base going forward. We used TIF dollars for several projects within the ward. One of those was Rush Hospital, and I partnered with the neighboring alderman to create over 500 jobs at Rush Presbyterian Hospital with a focus on hiring local residents. The end of phase 1 of Rush's $1 billion campus renovation will be marked this month by an opening of 220,000 square foot orthopedic building at Ashland and Harrison. The Rush initiative is on track. Local residents have been hired, they are working hard, and they're taking home a paycheck. Another example is United Airlines' relocation of 2,500 employees to the Willis Tower, some still call it Sears, from Elk Grove Village. This is an employer with 2,500 employees coming downtown and setting up shop. How do we value that? In early 2009, United began its site selection process to consolidate and relocate its operational headquarters and considered approximately 15 sites in Lake, DuPage, and Cook County. One of our challenges was that the suburban areas were much less costly. The city's offer of assistance helped narrow the gap, and it was an important factor in United's decision. The TIF amount leverages $46 million of private capital being invested by United today. The TIF is to be paid over an 8-year period, not to exceed $25.8 million, which includes $1.5 million for job training. This needs to be weighed against the projected revenue expected to be generated over the same period, over $61 million in additional real estate, sales, utility, and lease or transaction taxes. United covenants to maintain at least 2,500 jobs for a period of 10 years, and all of the construction jobs will be paid a prevailing wage. Additionally, the United move to downtown sends the right message that downtown Chicago is a vibrant, productive place to do business and help solidify Chicago's position as a national and international air transport hub. Before signing off on the letter for this project, we negotiated several protections for the taxpayers that would be allocated sufficiently to over time to generate additional tax revenues and to be justified as prudent investment for the city at large. In this most difficult time, though, as we look to get people hired and to create jobs, it is equally important, if not more important, to put an emphasis on not losing the jobs that we have. When I refer to employment growth, implicit in that is also employment preservation. This is one of the reasons why I supported the Chicago Mercantiles Exchange effort to stay in Chicago. And it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the context and history of the CME's place and the importance of the exchange to Chicago. In the mid-1800s, Chicago emerged as the country's largest market for corn, wheat, lumber, and meat. Forward contracting was a way to instill some certainty into the market, to level off the peaks and valleys of pricing that could have had devastating effect on the economy. The Chicago Board of Trade was formed in 1848, providing a place, an exchange, where buyers and sellers could negotiate prices and future deliveries of grain. In 2007, the Board of Trade and the MERC merged in what is now known as the CME Group. Today, the CME Group, located at Jackson and LaSalle, employs 1,800 people in Chicago. On any given day, it clears millions of contracts for customers globally. CME acquired the New York Mercantile Exchange in August of 2008. And by the way, the New York Mercantile Exchange has excess office space of 500,000 square feet in a building they own in Lower Manhattan that the CME staff could have occupied. The TIF incentive that Chicago was offering required 1,750 jobs to be retained in Chicago over the next 10-year period. CME also commits no less than 638 additional full-time positions during the compliance period. The $15 million in TIF funds to be paid over a 10-year period leverages total development cost of $61 million. The CME currently pays approximately $12 million a year in property taxes. What message does it send if we allow the world's largest and most diverse future and options exchange, whose roots are here in Chicago, to move away? What message does that send to other corporations and businesses around the world that may be considering opening up shop here? We cannot blindly support corporate incentives at the expense of our citizens, but use as an economic development tool to attract private capital, job retention, and job creation to grow our economy as a concept cannot be dismissed. I have supported TIF funding for job counseling and job training programs, and I have supported such programs for ex-offenders. I was at an event last week at St. Leonard's on the near west side, and am encouraged by much, if not all, of the successes that St. Leonard's is making. Projects that receive TIF funding have to benefit the community and the city as a whole, and they must leverage private capital. The concept of leverage is important. In the aggregate, Chicago's TIFs have leveraged $10 billion of private investment through no less than $1.8 billion in public investment. Secondly, I want to talk about development. Commercial development and jobs go hand in hand. Last year I mentioned that I led a bus tour of developers and brokers to showcase the development opportunities that I believe exist in the Second Ward. And I've been working to attract new business. I'm glad to report one of the examples from that bus tour has had multiple benefits. In addition to putting a piece of vacant property back on the tax rolls, in addition to creating construction jobs and permanent retail jobs that go with this new development, this initiative does something that my office is very proud of. It closes a food desert. Food deserts are large geographical areas with no distant grocery stores, but often high concentration of fast or fringe food. According to the research from Mari Gallagher Research and Consulting Group, there are over 600,000 Chicago residents who live in a food desert, and whose residents are more likely to suffer and die prematurely from diet-related diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular conditions that accounting for other key factors. Most who suffer are African Americans who travel twice as far to reach a grocery store than they do to reach a fast food. I'm proud to say that Pete's Fresh Market is slated to begin construction next year at Madison and Western, creating new jobs and providing fresh fruit, vegetables, and groceries to an area where such development has been long overdue. Also, located on the east side of the ward, McCormick Place is the largest convention facility. Yet, according to the Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau, Chicago ranks 14th in the nation in dollars spent marketing ourselves as a convention and tourism destination. We have to find a way to increase our promotional budget. This is an investment to attract people and their tourism dollars to the city. Wasn't that one of the main purposes of the Olympic bid? With respect to residential development, the housing crisis, as we all know, has hit Chicago hard. In the first 9 months of 2009, there have been over 14,700 foreclosures in Chicago, a decrease of 9.6% from the same period of time. But that number is still far too high. My office has been working with local counseling agencies to provide assistance, and our office on Western Avenue holds a free legal clinic every Tuesday evening to give constituents advice and direction on legal matters, including providing information to direct them to the right services to help those who face foreclosure, identify their options, and work to get them back on a solid financial footing. As an elected official of the residents of the Second Ward, one of the more troubling things that I see are folks who stand to lose their home. And not only due to foreclosures because they were victims of predatory lending, but innocent people who bought in a new development that has had special assessment after special assessment and mounting legal fees because the developer cut corners and did not provide a quality product. Due to no fault of their own, some may lose their homes. This is not right. They are pursuing the proper legal remedies, but as alderman, I am doing what I can to help homeowners see that this type of a development won't be tolerated as a policy matter. I've been holding public hearings to bring the issue of poor residential construction to light. We have to help homeowners ensure against latent defects and have better oversight over the issue of certificate of occupancy. We do have controls in place to deal with when TIF dollars are approved for commercial development. It is the policy of the Department of Community Development that no business will be conducted with a development entity whose principal, for example, is a defendant in a legal action for deficient performance. If we have controls in place for the benefit of those city TIF revenues, I believe we should have the same controls in place for the benefit of our tax-paying homeowners. I encourage my fellow aldermen to join me in helping our homeowners who bought in this city, many of whom have moved from the suburbs to enjoy the amenities that the city has to offer them to make the right decision. I've also been proud to be working with the Chicago Housing Authority on the development of Roosevelt Square, the Abla Homes, West Haven, West End, and 35th and Giles. By the way of using TIF resources, we have been able to provide quality mixed income housing opportunities, including affordable housing for hundreds of residents in the Second Ward. As we all know, this economy will not turn around until the housing market stabilizes. And the housing market won't stabilize and grow until people feel more confident about the employment outlook, which is one of the reasons why job retention and job growth is the primary objective for me every single day as alderman. To complement the new development, my staff and I have been working to provide infrastructure improvements throughout the ward, from increasing the wattage in street lamps to installing ornamental piggyback fixtures on streetlights in both residential and commercial areas. This not only adds to the aesthetic value and brightens the sidewalks and alleys at night, but along with other measures can serve as a crime deterrent. We've purchased police pod cameras to monitor hotspots and disperse criminal hangouts. I've brought in problematic liquor license holders for hearings and discipline. Packaged liquor license stores, which opened in the ward before I became alderman, need to and are becoming responsible business owners if they want to keep their licenses in the ward. I've worked with the Bureau of Electricity to provide spotlights on facades of some of our churches, so at night the architectural significance of the structures can be appreciated by the neighborhood. This is a low-cost way of providing aesthetic improvement to a streetscape by showcasing classic architecture that already exists. We've been installing new stop signs, pedestrian crossings, and new speed bumps near schools. Our office has been working to develop the Western Avenue corridor into a vibrant district. We are turning Western Avenue into a more pedestrian-friendly and green parkway. This year alone, and by the end of this month, over 300 trees will have been planted on the west side of my ward from Western to Sacramento. And in addition to the Pete's Fresh Market on Madison and Western, this intersection will also be the home of the new Johnny's Ice House, which will provide a place for training of the Chicago Blackhawks. After extensive community input, beginning in April, we will begin a $20 million Congress Street Parkway renovation project from Wells to Michigan Ave, and will be work on the Congress Street Bridge. Congress Street will finally become a gateway into the city. I want to thank the local residents and citizens who spent lots of time and contributed their good ideas to the design and plan for this undertaking. However, we are also investing $300 million in improvements to the south end of Wacker Drive, both upper and lower, and resurfacing of the Eisenhower will begin all in April. Expressways have been financed by the federal stimulus funds. What makes living in the city worth living here? I hear from my constituents that they love living in the city, but also desire green space, a place to jog, walk, or soak in a little fresh air after a stress-filled day. We are working to provide tangible, positive, quality of life benefits to our citizens. Using TIF funds, we have created a new park, a district field house in the South Loop, a new park and 2 new dog-friendly areas in the West Loop, a new park plaza in Printers Row in the 600 block of South Dearborn that we dedicated this past Saturday. And there are several parks now in the construction or design phase throughout the Second Ward. I've also approved TIF funds for significant improvements in Dunbar Park at 31st and Martin Luther King Drive, being matched by resources from the Chicago Park District. And we are asking TIF funds to upgrade our schools on the west side and to resurface most, if not all, of the streets over the next 3 years. And as I talk about schools, I want to turn to education for a moment. Quality education has been the focus since I announced my run for alderman. And it is imperative that we have our children compete in a competitive global economy. But how do we instill hope in our children when only 50% of our kids graduate from the Chicago Public Schools, high schools? This is unacceptable. There is a place in society for all of our children. The question is how we move them forward. We have to expand technical and vocational training opportunities. I have been holding regular meetings with the principals, all 40 of them, of the public schools that are located in the Second Ward, to hear their ideas and their concerns and what matters to them and help provide solutions on their matters and other matters, and how to help increase attendance within their schools, reduce the violence, improve extracurricular activities, and work to get their parents involved. In the last 2 years, 6 new high schools opened in the Second Ward. The Second Ward is a home to a wide range of public academic opportunities, including 4 military academies, the new Chicago Performing Arts School, the Technology Academy, the Urban Prep, the second all-male public high school in Chicago. The Chicago Public Schools need to be congratulated on this as part of the Renaissance 2010 and their promise to create over 100 new charter and contract schools in Chicago. But students living near these schools should have a real opportunity to attend these schools. Skinner Elementary on the west side and the new Jones College Prep School downtown are prime instances where I have insisted that CPS create a neighborhood component where previously all you had to do was test in to be accepted. We all know that there are severe violence issues in our city. When a student was killed in March of '08 outside of Crane High School, my office created Operation Safe Passage, an initiative that was immediately coordinated with resources from the Chicago Police Department, the CTA, local faith-based institutions to help get the kids to school safely there and back. One of the other programs that we have been working on and developing is to work cooperatively with the new administration at the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center to facilitate more effective community involvement. For example, getting the ministers in the ward into the center to counsel and mentor and to get more churches involved in part of the probation process. I've been holding periodic breakfasts meetings with the local ministers. It gives them an opportunity to come together and discuss what's going on in their communities, to build a consensus and work from the ground up, block by block, to address issues that impact our children and our communities. And this is a program that can be repeated across the city. CPS has failed to monitor students being released from the juvenile detention and to make sure that they get back into school once they are released. This is a serious situation and has an impact on the violence in our city. I am working with CPS to identify facilities and programs to help students released from juvenile detention in not only re-entering school, but keeping them in school. We have to find a way to remove children who have serious emotional and behavioral problems from the classrooms to allow teachers to teach. CPS has fallen down in supporting these students in therapeutic day schools, both public and private, and now CPS is studying the situation. I have visited the therapeutic day schools in the city and have visited Montefiore School in the Second Ward several times to see what we are doing to support these students and their teachers and to identify best practices to ensure that resources are used to their fullest capacity. Because I was concerned with the severe reductions in staff and student assignments at Montefiore, I introduced a resolution in the City Council asking the City Council Education Committee to investigate CPS's handling of Montefiore and other Chicago therapeutic day schools. I am encouraged by CPS's recent decision to hire an outside consultant to evaluate all public and private therapeutic day schools used by the CPS throughout Chicago. I look forward to reviewing the evaluation and working with CPS and their as they improve opportunities for these students. Keeping kids in school so they can become productive members of society is not just a social issue. It is an issue of a quality of life, and it is also an economic issue. It is an investment that we cannot afford not to make. It has been estimated that over the working lives, the average high school dropout will have a negative fiscal contribution to society, nearly a negative $5,200, while the average high school graduate generates a positive fiscal contribution of $287,000. The average high school dropout will cost taxpayers over $292,000 in lower tax revenues, high cash and in-kind transfer costs, and imposed incarceration costs. We need to encourage the Illinois General Assembly, all members of that assembly, because this is not just Chicago's problems, this is not somebody else's problems, this is all of our problem, and I said it last time I was here before the City Club, and I say it again, we must reform the way we fund public schools in Illinois. And finally, thank you. And finally, the city budget. The members of the City Council will be asked to vote on the budget on December 2nd. Income tax revenues are expected to fall as the nation's unemployment numbers are expected to increase. Although we are seeing some stabilization in home prices, the real estate transaction tax is not expected to recover next year, and the 2010 real estate tax projection reflects a 78% drop from just 3 years ago. We all know we have three fundamental choices: cut expenses, raise revenues, or do both. I agree with the mayor that in difficult financial times, we cannot raise taxes on our working citizens. People are struggling enough. So how do we fill the $520 million hole in this $6 billion budget? The proposed budget calls for $44 million in personal and non-personal personnel reductions, $8 million from closing of the 2 TIF districts, $118 million from debt financing and restructuring. I am not a fan of tapping the reserves to pay operating expenses. The current plan is to borrow $100 million from the 2012 parking meter midterm reserves and $250 million from the parking meter long-term reserves. But given the historically low interest rate environment we are in, while short-term interest rates near 0% and the Fed Reserve indicating their plan to hold rates there now for the most foreseeable future, today there is little opportunity to borrow against the reserve on a short-term basis. But I want to know that we have a disciplined and written plan to replenish those reserves before the opportunity for real investment rate returns. We must hold the line on spending, we must grow our tax base, and restore the reserve. I believe every day that those of us in office should be working to preserve and grow our tax base and not further burden our citizens by higher taxes. That is why job creation and job preservation has been important to me. For the income tax, sales taxes, and property taxes generated all by a growing employment base. As we continue to look for places to cut in the budget, I will continue to seek openness and transparency in government. There is no doubt that we are in challenging times, not just in Chicago, but across this nation. But we have seen challenges before. We are Chicago, a city rich in culture, diverse in background. Many of us are children of immigrants who came to this country with a belief that if we worked hard, we scrimped and saved, we can make a positive contribution to our communities and make lives better, not only for ourselves and our families, but for others. With a good education and good job, other things fall into place. People can save for their future, communities thrive, we can invest our resources in our city. There's a lot more work to do, and every day is filled with challenges. It is all the little successes that we have seen that should motivate us. They do that for me. By keeping the work together, we create opportunities to make this a stronger and more equitable and sustainable city. Thank you.
They must think that the alderman is a big drinker. I just looked under the dais. We have one here, and there's another one on this side. And Miles Berman, our great advisor, came
Knows
to
when
the
I'm
rescue once again. He can tell when you're dry. Miss Saxon, this is the City Club. Okay. This is from Nancy Donahoe. Nancy, where are you at? Back there. She's with Robert Morris University. Does the city have a regulation regarding the number of years scaffolding remains up around a building? She obviously has something right near her. Scaffolding has been up around the old Colony building on Van Buren for at least 5 years.
The answer is yes, and we impose a larger fee every year, every 6 months that scaffolding's up, and that does not answer the question. Because that building, as you know, has been subject to new owners. We did have, unfortunately, that TIF was dissolved. We would have been able to help the new owners with TIF financing. But we are seeing some improvement, and last night as I drove by it, I said, I'm waiting for the day for that scaffolding to come down, but we are working on that, and we're working with the owners to make sure that they finish the tuck pointing on the outside and all of the other changes also before they move forward.
Okay, thank you. This is from Naomi Kothbauer, who is our City Club videographer in the back of the room. Thank you very much, Naomi, and is also a resident of the 2nd Ward. And I hope you're a registered voter there. Okay, good. Otherwise we might, you know. How has the presence of colleges and universities in the 2nd Ward affected development opportunities in the area?
You know, the downtown area has the largest college population in the country. 67,000 students. I believe there are, I don't know how many are living in the downtown area, but it's because we also have some in the neighboring adjacent North Ward that we are sitting in right now. But I think the numbers are a little bit over 15,000 that live in the downtown area. All of that adds to the vibrancy. It makes the downtown area 7 days a week thriving area, so it does help development. It also helps the small shops, the restaurants, because in addition to those 67,000 students, that means that they have to be taught. I think we have 15,000 teachers out of all the universities that are in the downtown area. That means people that drive in need to find places to park. In addition, the meals, it's been an incredible boom to the city of Chicago by having all of those universities, I'll say, clustered here. But at the same time, it does pose problems, and we try to work with all the security staffs. I know we have almost a quarterly meeting with all the security personnel, the heads of them, of all the universities, and we're not just talking a couple of universities. We have a little bit over 10 that are down here in the downtown area.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. This is from Marianne Gleason. Marianne, where are you? Back there. Are you in agreement with the mayor on using money from the rainy day fund at this time?
As I said near the end, I want to see a written, detailed plan regarding how the money will be replenished. I was one of the last people to ask questions to the budget revenue and otherwise, and I asked, and most of the press had gone and had left at that time, and because we were at, I think, about 8 o'clock on that Monday night of the first of the budget hearings, and my question was, are we going to be here at midterm looking at more layoffs, more furloughs, and using more additional rainy day fund? And the answer was nobody knew. So the next 6 months are going to be a trying time for this city, but we do need to have written guarantees to bring that money back in.
Thank you, Alderman. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge Donovan Pepper representing Walgreens. And Donovan, your name's suddenly begun appearing in the University of Illinois Alumni Association magazine, so obviously, you know, okay. Let's give Mr. Pepper a hand. I don't know who slipped this in, but it was there. This is from Chris Gogler. Chris, where are you at? Excellent, back there. Given the fact that Chicago has one of the largest and most expensive city councils, do you think the size of the city council should be reduced? Not in the second ward, of course.
I don't know what other aldermen do, but let me just tell you what we do. We have 4 staff members. I see Andy's here, my chief of staff. I think Pasquale, who does the scheduling. We have 2 other people. Leslie Reck is a full-time almost volunteer. When I say almost, because she's also a full-time lawyer. We receive 3,500 phone calls a month. We receive 100 emails almost a day. I don't know what the other aldermen do, but and I know it's a lot slower in some of the other wards, but I have been a proponent of looking at maybe slicing some of the number of council members, but it's a difficult task because it's not the only way that we can save money. I think the city council members need their own budget advisors because this budget is seriously problematic in terms of we're given it and then we're told to vote on it 2 weeks later. To look at the lease transaction deals because we don't have any inside counsel that can advise us. And so if we're really to do the job that the people of this city need and to have, you know, it is a strong council, weak mayor form of government, but somebody forgot to tell a lot of people here in this city. So, we're always looking at this aspect here. We are.
Okay, thank you. We have several more questions. This is from Joyce Saxon, member of our Board of Governors. Aren't McCormick Place unions still not competitive to sites like Las Vegas, thereby cutting us out of potential convention business?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the real question that of why Las Vegas has all these conventions. Las Vegas spends almost $150 million a year to attract new business. We spend just slightly over $14 million a year. And as I said, we are 14th in the nation in terms of our budget to attract tourism and to attract conventions. I want to see that number raised. The mayor is proposing cutting out $500,000 out of the budget. What somebody in budget failed to tell him that was a matching grant by the state, so therefore we're losing $1 million out of it. So today we are moving to introduce an amendment to restore that proposed cut.
Okay, thank you. And we have several more questions that are related to public schools and education. This is from Chicago Teachers Union President Marilyn Stewart. CPS teachers are required to live in the city. Please define affordable housing, since new teachers qualify for subsidized housing.
And first of all, I work. Marilyn and I talk often, And, you know, I think she's doing a great job. I think the teachers union are doing a great job, and I'm going to tell you why. Because for some reason, we believe, or there's this philosophy that once the kids come through the door into the classroom, they forget all their problems. They forget all the gang lines that they had to cross. They forget the problems at their homes, and the teachers can teach them so easily. Well, that's not the case, and the teachers that we have are really great teachers and throughout the union, and you know, for all of your members, you do a great job all the way across the board. I want to tell you one thing that I've been trying to do, and I've been trying to convince those in the administration, not just because, let's face it, teachers come out of school, so do the police and fire, and their debt load is huge. You know, whether you walk away with a $25,000 debt load or $50,000 debt load, and we encourage, especially our teachers, to go on, get another master's degree, get a PhD, and it's almost impossible in this day and age to maintain the cost. But what I've been trying to do, again, is in the TIF districts, that we use that to create it in affordable housing. We should be putting it at, there's no actual reason why we should turn Rockwell into the next phase into rental right now, waiting for the turnaround. We should be giving grants or using the TIF in and by itself as the bank to help teachers, fire, and police get jobs so they have get good homes and use them in our communities and stay in our communities that way.
Okay. And Alderman, I think Jay in his introduction said that you grew up in the Pullman-Roseland neighborhood, very close probably to Fenger High School. Several studies have recently shown that hostile and sullen and angry students who are exposed to such areas as music and art frequently benefit by those areas, yet music and art seem to be among the first areas cut. Could you speak to that a little bit?
You know, it's a question that of how we address the issues. And again, as I started off at the beginning or near the end about talking about education and how we keep our kids in schools, you know, I think the arts are a fantastic way to make sure that our children learn. But, you know, let's face facts. The statistics show that if the kids aren't involved by 4th grade, we've lost them. So we have to do something to keep them engaged. We, you know, the same items that we do that we have for our, you know, I'm lucky, and I say it. I can tell though. We have 40 schools in the 2nd Ward. I have the best high schools and the more challenging schools in urban America. You know, we talk about Whitney Young. We talk about Jones. We've got Crane. Manly's right across the street, and I do what I can for Manly. You know, we use, and those are just a few out of the 12, 14 high schools that we have. We need to get our kids involved in the arts, but we need our parents involved, and it's always easy to say, oh yeah, where's the parents? Well, let's face facts. When the kids are 16 and 17 years old and they're having babies, and they're not in school, what are we how are we going to help them train and educate their children in this global society? So we need to come up with more daycare centers, more daycare relief, help train the parents, help get the parents to have an understanding, after-school programs, sports programs, listening to the arts, going to movies, going to listen. I see the folks from the Willis Tower. They gave me a whole series of tickets because, you know what, some of the kids that can see the Sears Tower and Willis Tower, they don't go there. They've never come downtown. And we've been talking, Bob Winslow's over here. You know, and I want to bring in a lot of the kids just to come in. We're going to bring them up, let them look at the city and see what it is. You know, those are it's sometimes the small things that make all the difference in the world for our kids, and can help educate them, help inspire them, help them grow their potential. And that's what we got to look at, because I see Char's over here, you know, and she's over at the Children's Advocacy Center. We don't need having abused kids going through a system. We need to help them find relief and help those children to have relief too that are being abused out there in our society.
Okay, thank you very much. And you said that there would be a lot of activity on the Congress Street Expressway area this spring. So I'm sure that to avoid all those problems, consider using the RTA and CTA, right, Steve? That's right. Okay. Alderman, we'd like to thank the Alderman. like to present you with a one-year membership to the City Club and the history of the City Club.
I've read.
You've read, and we can give it to one of your assistants. By the way, I've walked past his ward office several times on Dearborn Street, particularly in the evening, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and there's always a lot of activity going on in there. I haven't gone in to see what they're doing, but they sure look like they're busy. This will pass any ethics tests, our City Club mug, and we want to thank you very much.
Well, wait a minute. Before, this is my third time appearing, and, I enjoy, I always have in fact, I started off this morning with my coffee out of this cup. But this is the City Club of Chicago, right? Now, as we look around, Mangiano's provided the bag, but Jay, I think you got to come up here because you should, both of you need to grab what's in here. And this is a small size version, but
Look at both of us are buttoning our seatbelts. What does this mean?
all right, so both of you, because this is what's always been missing, and I've noticed it lately. I'm going to get the bigger size.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Have a great day.